Hello, welcome to the Ramblings of a Trucker podcast. My name's Alan and I work as a long-distance truck driver based in the UK. I got the idea to do a podcast after a strange series of events. I'd been going live on TikTok, just talking about life in general. Dating, because at the time I was single, working as a motorbike riding instructor, which was what I was doing at the time. And I decided to get back into being a truck driver. I announced I was going to renew my driver CPC, which involved 5 days online training. And that prompted a lot of questions from people who'd never known a truck driver throughout their life. And they started asking questions about what the job involved, why I had to do the training, what had I done previously? Had I driven a truck? What type of truck would I be doing? Now, TikTok is a great platform for entertainment. People with a short attention span, people who are just passing the day, flicking from video to video, just getting a quick hit of entertainment. It's perfect for that. That's not what I wanted to do. I want this podcast to feel like you've climbed up into my cab. You've sat in the passenger seat and you've said to me, Alan, tell me about your day. Tell me about your week. Tell me about your job. What have you done in the past? What are the highlights? What things drive you mad? That's how I want this podcast to be. So let me start by telling you how I got into the industry. My dad was a truck driver, and as a young schoolboy, he used to take me with him during the school holidays, sometimes for the day, but generally for a week at a time. We would start at 3 or 4 o'clock on a Monday morning, and generally get back home middle of the day on Saturday. So I kind of got used to being away all week, doing long journeys, route planning. It was part of my upbringing. I left school in the late 80s, but it wasn't until 1999 that I decided to start driving trucks for a living. I applied for a job that offered sponsored training, and they booked me in for my training and my test. And when the contract came through, it was working shift patterns that I just couldn't do. So I declined the job. But I agreed to pay for the training and test so I could continue and obtain my Class 2 licence. Back then you had to take your Class 2, which was rigid HGV, and then once you'd done that you could then train for your Arctic or your Class 1, your C+E. So I did the Class 2 training and passed the test first time, and then got a job working for a builder's merchant, delivering timber and building materials. I enjoyed that job, but it was too localised, just pottering around, like a 50-mile radius of where we were based. I wanted to spread my wings, I wanted to travel a little bit further. I missed the long journeys. So I decided to put myself in for my Class 1 on my C+E. I managed to do that with just 2 half days of training and then my test, and passed first time. I carried on working for the builder's merchant, and eventually a job appeared in the local paper, and it just ticked all the boxes. They were a large company, the depots throughout the UK, hundreds of trucks and trailers, doing general haulage, and they offered days, nights, or tramping. It was the tramping I wanted to do. So I applied and I did a driving assessment around the town and got the job. So I worked as a Class 1 tramper doing general haulage from early 2000 through to 2007. I stopped tramping in 2007, started doing day work, and then I eventually stopped driving in 2015. I then spent 8 years doing other things, and in January 2023 I resat my driver CPC, had to do the full 35 hours, and started driving again. Now this part I find particularly interesting because all over the media there were claims that there was a driver shortage. There wasn't enough truck drivers in the UK. So, having passed my test in '99, I'd resat my CPC, so I'd got a full 5-year driver CPC, years of experience doing various things, high street store deliveries, using tail lifts, curtain siders, general haulage, Moffat mounties. I'd done various things. And I started to apply for jobs. Now, I didn't really care at this stage what type of job I got, what work it was doing. I just wanted to get behind the wheel again. I wanted to travel the country. I applied for 37 vacancies and I didn't get a single interview. So where is the driver shortage? Here I am wanting a Class 1 job, and of those 37 vacancies, nobody offered me an interview. So I decided to look further afield and look at a type of driving that I'd never done before, bulk tippers. So as soon as I put that into the search criteria on Indeed, a job leapt out of the screen, kind of slapped me around the face, metaphorically, and said, apply for me. So I sent an email, and within 24 hours I got a reply back saying, give us a call, we want to interview you. Now the job was nearly 2 hours away from where I lived, but I travelled down, sat through the interview, and straight away they told me they wanted me to start based on my experience and how I'd conducted myself during the interview. So 10 days after that, I started work as a bulk tipper tramper driver. Now at this stage in the podcast, if you're already working in the industry, if you're one of my colleagues, you're going to be bored by what I'm talking about. This podcast isn't for you. This podcast is for the people that have got a genuine interest in learning about what the job involves. They're probably, as I said earlier, from TikTok, they've probably never known a lorry driver. They don't know what the job involves. They don't know what driving a truck is all about. They don't know how it's different to driving a car. But hopefully this will be where it gets really interesting for the people that know nothing about the industry. So, what is a bulk tipper driver? Well, bulk is anything in large quantities. So we don't carry 10 kilo bags of sand. We carry 29 tonne of sand. Anything that has to be transported in bulk, in a vehicle, where you have to tip the trailer in order to get the product out. That's a tipper trailer, and we are bulk tipper drivers. Because what we transport is in bulk, large quantities. Now you may also be thinking, why are you trampers? Why do you have the name tramper? Well, there's two theories behind where the name originates from. I mean, way back in the day when people first started tramping, probably back in the 60s. One, it was termed that they would tramp all over the country, or they'd tramp all over the continent. I've got a friend of my dad's, and he used to drive from the UK to Iraq in a truck back in the day. I mean, what a journey that must have been. The other reason for the term tramper is because sometimes you had to almost live like a tramp. I mean, these days motorway service stations have all got showers that drivers can use. But back then, they just weren't available. My dad would often park up on the edge of town and walk into a town and use the public swimming baths. He'd pay for a swimming session just so he could use the showers and then go back to the truck and sleep and cook himself a meal and then go to bed. The majority of trampers, they work through the day and they sleep at night, but you do get what we term night trampers, where you get your daily rest through the daytime, sleep through the day and do all your driving and your deliveries and collections at night. Personally, I couldn't do that. The roads are so busy, trying to find somewhere quiet and peaceful to park up so you can get some sleep through the day. And I imagine in the summer, with the temperatures, the sun beaming down on the cab, it must be almost impossible to get a decent sleep. But sometimes people do it because they have to, because it pays better. So now I'm trying to preempt some of the questions you may have going through your head as you're listening to me ramble on. Why choose tramping over day work? The biggest reason, or the biggest two reasons, one is money. Because if you spend the night out in the truck, you get paid a tax-free allowance on top of your wage. So that's an incentive. The other is that there's less pressure as a tramper. Now let me explain this. With your tachograph, you can only drive so many hours a day, and you can only work so many hours a day. So if you're delayed because there's roadworks, an accident, any sort of delays loading, delivering, mechanical failure, punctures, things like that, you can suddenly become under a lot of pressure to get home, or you may not be able to get home. If you're tramping, all that pressure is removed. If you turn up at a mill and the machinery is broken down and they just say, you're going to have to wait, we've got an engineer on site, it might be fixed in 2 or 3 hours. It doesn't matter. You're still not getting home until the weekend. So if the machinery breaks on a Tuesday afternoon and you can't make that delivery till Wednesday, well, it's no big deal. You're still getting paid and you get your night out allowance. You make the delivery when you can, and then you carry on doing your next job throughout the week. And that pressure to get home, once you've stepped back from that, from the day work, you can't go back. And this is the problem I found when I went to do day work in 2007. Initially, the job I took had fixed hours. I'd start at 6 and I'd be finished at 2. And within 6 months of starting, the job changed within the company. And suddenly they were planning us for 12 hours a day. And then we'd set off and we'd do a trailer swap at another depot, but there'd be a delay getting a trailer, or the trailer might have a flat tyre, so you'd have to wait then for someone to come out to change the tyre. And suddenly your 12-hour day was becoming 14 hours and 14 and a half hours, and your limit's 15. So suddenly you were back under pressure. Am I going to get home? What if I don't get home? With sharing trucks, I don't have any kit with me. I haven't got a sleeping bag. I haven't got a change of clothes. I haven't got a wash bag. And that pressure is too much. When you've been a tramper, you appreciate the freedom that it gives you. And it's just a more relaxing way of driving a truck. Now, is there a downside to tramping? Well, it would have to be that you can't go on sick for something that isn't really serious. For example, if you've got a cold or a flu or something like that, you can't, if you're 7 hours drive away from a base, you can't wake up and ring your boss and just say, I'm not going to work today, mate, because I don't feel too good. You've just got to get on with it, because even if you want to go home, you still have to drive the truck to get home. So if you can drive yourself back home because you're not well enough to be at work, well, you're kind of proving that you can do your job in order to drive home. So you kind of get on with it. You wake up, you're sniffly, if you were an office worker, you'd probably ring in sick. But as a tramper, you just get on with it. Even if you've got an upset stomach, you can't just go home. Going home means doing your job. So you can't get away with things like that, like you can in other industries. You carry painkillers and things like Imodium, toilet paper, things like that. essentials that you might need, and you just work. You do your 5 days or your 6 days, and you just get on with it. Now, at this stage in the podcast, you've probably realised I'm not used to this, and I'm still getting used to the software, editing it. I'm still getting used to talking to an audience I can't see. It's getting easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind this up and put this out there and see what response it gets. That gives me time to work on another episode. The plan is to make each episode about something. So I'll do an episode about driver's hours. I'll do an episode about services and facilities and showers and things like that. Another one about the daily checks that we have to do on the vehicle. And I'll interject with things that have happened in my career, things that may have happened that day when I'm recording it, or that week. Try and liven it up and put a real mix of things together. But for now, this has taken me all weekend to put together this first episode, which is less than 20 minutes. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and that you hang around and listen to another episode or two, maybe even subscribe, and leave a comment or send me a message. Thanks for listening, and we'll do it all again soon.